Sarah Martinez pushed open the heavy glass doors of the Riverside Animal Shelter in Sacramento, California, her heart already heavy with the weight of what she was about to face. As the shelter's most experienced veterinary technician, she'd seen her fair share of difficult cases over the past 15 years, but something about this one felt different. "She's in here," Linda, the morning shift supervisor, gestured toward the isolation ward. "Found her huddled behind a dumpster near Tower Bridge. No chip, no collar, and completely blind." The cat in question was a small gray and white female with cloudy blue eyes that stared vacantly ahead. Her fur was matted and dirty, and she tucked herself into the furthest corner of the cage, barely touching the food that had been left for her. "How long has she been blind?" Sarah asked, carefully opening the cage door. "Hard to tell," Linda replied, checking her notes. "The vet thinks it's a combination of untreated infection and trauma. Both retinas are completely detached. She's probably been living on the streets like this for months." Sarah reached out slowly, letting the cat catch her scent. "Hey there, sweet girl," she whispered. "You're safe now." The cat flinched at first but didn't hiss or strike out, a good sign, Sarah thought. Years of experience had taught her that even the most traumatized animals could sense genuine kindness. "Have you named her yet?" Linda shook her head. "We've been calling her Luna because of her eyes. They look like little moons." "Luna," Sarah repeated softly. "It suits her." Over the next few days, Sarah spent every spare moment with Luna. The cat was severely undernourished, and while she accepted food and water, she showed no interest in exploring or interacting with anyone. She simply sat in her corner, facing the wall, as if she'd already given up on life. "We can't keep her in isolation forever," Linda said one morning, 3 weeks after Luna's arrival. "The weekend adoption event is coming up, but honestly, Sarah, who's going to adopt a blind cat that won't even move?" Sarah knew Linda was right. The shelter was already over capacity, and while they tried their best to avoid euthanizing animals, the harsh reality was that they couldn't keep every animal indefinitely, especially those deemed unadoptable. "Give me 2 more weeks," Sarah pleaded. "There's something special about her. I can feel it." Linda sighed but nodded. She'd known Sarah long enough to trust her instincts with animals. 2 weeks. But that's all I can promise." That evening, as Sarah was preparing to leave for the day, she heard a commotion from the main kennel area. A large golden retriever had just been brought in, causing quite a stir among the other dogs. "What's his story?" Sarah asked Mike, one of the animal control officers. "Name's Charlie," Mike said, struggling to control the excited dog. "Owner passed away last week. Neighbor found him when she went to check on the house. He's about 8 years old. Good health overall, but—" Mike hesitated. "But what?" "He's got progressive retinal atrophy. Already pretty far advanced. The family couldn't afford the care he'd need, so they surrendered him." Sarah watched as Charlie wagged his tail, bumping into the kennel walls but maintaining his cheerful demeanor despite his obvious disorientation. Unlike Luna, he seemed determined to make the best of his situation, even as his world grew darker. That's when Sarah had an idea, one that her colleagues would probably call crazy but somehow felt absolutely right. The next morning, she arrived at work early. After checking that the main play area was empty, she carefully carried Luna's bed into the space, with Luna still huddled inside it. Then she went to get Charlie. The golden retriever followed her eagerly, his tail wagging despite his cautious steps. Sarah led him to the center of the room, then stepped back to watch. At first, nothing happened. Luna remained in her bed, and Charlie stood still, nose twitching as he took in the new scents. Then, slowly, he began to move toward the cat bed. Sarah held her breath, ready to intervene if necessary. But what happened next would forever change her understanding of animal relationships. Charlie approached Luna's bed with surprising gentleness. He lowered his head, sniffing carefully, and then did something remarkable. He lay down beside her, not touching, just being present. It was as if he somehow knew she needed company but wasn't ready for direct interaction. Luna, for the first time since her arrival, lifted her head. Her nose twitched, taking in Charlie's scent. She didn't retreat to her corner. Over the next hour, Sarah watched in amazement as a silent understanding seemed to develop between the two animals. Charlie would occasionally shift position, and Luna would turn her head toward the sound. When he finally stood up to get a drink of water, His movement created a slight breeze that caused Luna to perk up her ears. "Are you seeing this?" Linda whispered, having joined Sarah at the observation window. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. She'd hoped for some kind of connection, but this was beyond her expectations. Day by day, the unlikely pair grew closer. Charlie seemed to instinctively understand Luna's limitations, and he developed a remarkable system of communication with her. He would make soft woofing sounds before approaching, allowing her to track his location by sound. When they were in the play yard together, he would walk beside her, his body providing a guidance barrier that helped her navigate the space. Most surprisingly, Luna began to respond. She started leaving her bed more frequently, following the sound of Charlie's movements. When he would lie down for a nap, she would carefully make her way to him, eventually becoming comfortable enough to curl up against his warm fur. The transformation in Luna was remarkable. The cat who had once given up on life was now showing interest in her surroundings. Guided by her unlikely canine companion, she began to play with toys again, following the sound of bells and crinkles. She even started responding to the shelter staff's voices, particularly Sarah's. Word of the unusual friendship began to spread. Local news stations picked up the story, and soon Charlie and Luna became minor celebrities in Sacramento. People would come to the shelter just to watch them interact, amazed by their unique bond. But Sarah worried. As wonderful as their relationship was, the reality remained that both animals needed permanent homes. Separating them would be cruel, but finding someone willing to adopt both a blind cat and a blind dog seemed like an impossible task. Then, one day, a woman named Grace Chin walked into the shelter. She was a retired special education teacher who had recently lost her elderly dog. When she read about Charlie and Luna online, something resonated with her. "I understand what it's like to work with those who see the world differently," she told Sarah during their first meeting. "Sometimes all they need is someone who's willing to adapt to their way of experiencing life." Sarah arranged for Grace to spend time with Charlie and Luna over several days. She watched as the woman patiently learned their routines and signals, taking notes on their preferences and behaviors. Grace asked thoughtful questions about their care requirements and began researching how to make her home more accessible for blind pets. It wasn't just Grace's practical approach that impressed Sarah, it was the way both animals responded to her. Charlie would rest his head in her lap while she sat with him, and even Luna, typically shy with strangers, began to accept gentle pets from Grace's steady hands. The adoption process was thorough, as it always was at Riverside. Grace's home was inspected and modified to accommodate her blind companions. Carpet runners were installed to create textured paths through the house. Furniture was arranged to create clear pathways, and potentially dangerous areas were secured. The day Charlie and Luna left the shelter was bittersweet for Sarah. She had grown deeply attached to both animals, but she knew they were going to the best possible home. Grace had promised to keep in touch and send regular updates. Those updates soon became the highlight of Sarah's week. Pictures and videos showed Charlie and Luna settling into their new life, their bond growing even stronger in the stability of a permanent home. Grace documented their daily routines, how Charlie would wait patiently by Luna's food bowl until she finished eating, how Luna had learned to follow the jingling of Charlie's collar through the house. One particularly touching video showed Luna appearing distressed during a thunderstorm, and Charlie immediately going to her, lying beside her until she calmed down. Another captured their first successful navigation of Grace's backyard garden, with Charlie guiding Luna along the raised flower beds she'd installed specifically for them to use as reference points. Their story didn't end with adoption. Grace, inspired by their relationship, began working with the shelter to develop a program for special needs animals. She would bring Charlie and Luna to educational events, helping children understand that disabilities didn't define an animal's worth or capacity for love. The program grew, and soon other shelters in Northern California began implementing similar initiatives. Animals that might once have been considered unadoptable were being paired with compatible companions, increasing their chances of finding permanent homes. Sarah often reflected on that first day when she'd introduced Charlie and Luna. She'd hoped for a positive interaction, but what she witnessed was something far more profound. Two souls who, despite their limitations, found a way to illuminate each other's darkness. And that's the heartwarming story of Luna and Charlie, two unlikely companions who proved that love truly knows no boundaries. If this story inspired you, don't forget to give this video a like, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the beauty of connection and compassion. Together, we can make a difference, one story at a time.